Hello, everybody. Hey, this is Rob Mazak. I am a psychic medium, and I have done a number of podcasts, and I usually stick to the spirituality and metaphysical topics. Every now and then I mix in some other things, and what I like to do, if you've not heard me before, is to actually just start with an idea or ideas and then see where the conversation takes us. And I'm not sure exactly how I would categorize this particular topic, but I'm going to just go ahead and start with a phrase called Wag the Dog. Now, a lot of people have heard that definition or phrase, I should say, and I don't know if everybody really understands what that means. And I'm going to tie all this in as to why I'm having this talk tonight. So let's talk about the definition that the internet has, or one of the definitions. And so we can kind of understand what this might mean. And I'm also going to read off a couple of other things because I don't usually do that, but for some reason the definitions here really make more sense reading them from some of these posts than me trying to describe it. So Wag the Dog is a political term for the act of creating a diversion from a damaging issue, normally through military force. It stems from the generic use of the term to mean a small and seemingly unimportant entity, the tail in this case, controls a bigger, more important one, the dog, is usually used by a politician when they are in a scandal in hopes that people forget about the scandal and focus on the more important issue, of course, in this case, to be elected. And so there's a number of different examples of that have happened over the years. I don't know if I'm really going to go into that at this time. Watching all the events of all the things that are happening in the world right now is very, very overwhelming, or I should say it can be. There is just a tremendous amount of stuff going on, which we'll kind of touch on some of that in a minute. But I wanted to talk about a movie that was actually put out, I want to say in the 1970s, if I'm not mistaken, 1979, I believe, to be exact. Don't quote me on that. I was reading it earlier. It was a movie about this very thing where, it was 1997. Sorry, there it is right there. But it was a movie about a president who had found himself in the middle of, or about to be slammed into the middle of, a possible sex scandal just a few weeks before re-election. And of course, he wanted to create a diversion so that people didn't pay attention to that, or weren't paying as much attention to that as they needed to, which we're going to circle back around to, which I believe the media is designed to do in a lot of ways. There are some good people out there, but I think by and large, I believe it's used to control us, at least control our perception or program our perception. What they did was they actually, or the president in this case, in this movie, decided to hire a Hollywood movie maker, filmmaker, to create a war that did not actually physically happen. Everything happened from the studio. There was no real war. There was no people getting killed. There was no real anything. Everything was created. Let's see, what is the best way to put that? Here we go. Here's another saying that I pulled from a description of the movie. It says, "We, like the American public, get caught up in the events of a fictional war produced in the basement of the White House with computers, blue screens, actors, and scenarios." This was actually a perception and reality that all stem from 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue, which is actually the White House, right? And so that seems really scary to think about, that we could go to such lengths to deceive the public, the citizens of this United States in this example, but in all reality, the world. The media has become a very, very large political machine, in my opinion, or a machine in general, to develop perceptions that those that lead us would probably like us to have. Now, I'm not saying all this stuff is true. These are just some thoughts and some ideas. I'm not accusing anybody. I'm simply throwing some ideas out here from the view I have in my foxhole, as we say in the military, right? The reason I kind of circle back into this is because recently I've noticed a lot of trends on TikTok, for example. TikTok is one of my favorite social media platforms, simply because if you can get into the right algorithm, you can really learn a lot of interesting things and hear things that are not as censored as some of the other platforms are. And like I said, if I can get on the spiritual or metaphysical idea algorithm as I'm flipping through or scrolling, then there's a lot of really cool things that are talked about there that I don't necessarily see other places without reading really thick books or digging into very deep and boring scientific or spiritual books. And so it does give us guys in our new mentality these days, especially me, to watch something for 5 minutes, 6 minutes at best, and then it's time to be done with it, right? And so it is a really good way in a lot of ways to capture good information. Going through TikTok in my spare time, which I don't get a lot of, I do like to flip through it occasionally because I always learn something new or watch a new channel or something just off the wall that you don't necessarily see at other places, like I was talking about. But one of the things I've noticed is that if somebody posts something, people tend to, it seems, at least from my view of TikTok on that particular subject, that everybody or most people start to jump on the bandwagon and completely believe that it's true, or use it themselves to generate their own views and likes and things like that. Recently, I think it was yesterday, maybe the day before, somebody supposedly, quote unquote, I don't know whether it's true or not, videoed something falling from great heights in the sky and crash landing supposedly near the White House. And the videos that are actually being shown are pretty clever if they've created them themselves. Very amazing if it's an actual craft of some sort or thing actually coming to crash down. But the thing is that it seems like as soon as that person posted this thing on there, there was so much chatter and so much belief in a lot of ways in this particular idea. It just went on and on and on. I couldn't even watch TikTok anymore. I'm tired of hearing about this thing. The thing nowadays is that the internet is a very powerful tool that you can use in a lot of ways. I mean, let's just face it. When I grew up, we didn't have the internet. So, to find anything, you had to go through the encyclopedia set, or you go to the library, or you go through books, or you just learn from other people. Now there's really nothing you can't learn. There's nothing you can't find on the internet. And you can have degrees through the internet. I mean, all the schools use those platforms. You can run an entire military, a business, you name it. The internet has changed the game. It's absolutely changed the game. It has a lot of good things. But on the other side of it, with technology these days and this new AI programs, it is not hard at all whatsoever to create videos or media that look absolutely real. All you got to do is get a decent AI platform or program, and it can create a whole book for you. It can create just about anything you want to create that's visual or audio or both. And so it is very difficult at best to know what to believe in that you see through any of the media platforms at all. Whether it's the mainstream news, the alternative news is getting just as bad, any of the social media, you really never know. And so it is cool to look at these things and have these interesting thoughts. Maybe think, well, maybe we are now getting UFO information released and all that's being uncloaked. All of these things are beginning to show up. You know, you have to be really careful what you find yourself believing. I'm not saying there's not UFOs. I truly believe there's more than just us. And I do believe that many of those others do visit us and probably helped create the human beings as they are now and our evolution and all of that. Another topic. However, we got to be careful that we don't bite into every single thing we see on the internet as truth. You have to do your research. You have to really look at things in a lot of different angles and be careful that you don't become the tail. You know, you don't become you should be the dog, right? You don't want the media to wag you. It would make more sense for you to be the dog and control the wag, because it is not very difficult at all. And let's just face it, we are getting more and more and more and more issues showing up right before the elections. Am I wrong? Am I right? Let's look at it, right? I mean, the Ukraine and the Russian war is going absolutely nuts, even more so than usual. Iran and Russia are seem to be pairing up in a lot of ways. We have the biggest thing that we have going on now is the possible full-scale war between Israel and Iran, and all points in between, and all kinds of troops being deployed to the area. Lots of NATO nations coming on board and also becoming part of the equation. North and South Korea are bantering again, although they've been at war technically since they supposedly pulled or did the armistice, stop the fighting. You got to be careful what you believe in, because I've been in Korea. I've been stationed there for a lot of years. For them to say the things that they're saying on the news right now is old news in my world. It's not anything that isn't always the norm, yet they seem to be using that to actually frighten people and to get everybody concerned that there might be a war or that war popping back into existence, which I'm not saying it won't or it can't. But I mean, if you look at what they're portraying across the media platforms, true or not, there is a tremendous amount of things happening as per the media. Now, I hope that some of those might be just simply the Wag the Dog, and a lot of that is not entire reality, and is just designed to get us into a state of mind to perhaps choose a particular president or something of the sort. I would rather have that, to be honest, than what I think is happening out there based on what the media is putting out. Let's just face it. I mean, if you look at the most recent hurricane that went through Florida, right? Pretty damaging, and I'm not going to downplay it whatsoever. But if you look at the news, there's so many photo ops being put together to make it look much worse. They keep putting up on the news these flat bottom boats and airboats full of people and dogs and kids and all that, taking them down a flooded street. Why the side sidewalks and the yards on either side of the street are dry enough to walk on. So why are they doing that? In my mind, some of that is perception, and to get the public in line with what it is they would like us to believe. And like I said, I will never downplay any problems, because I know that a storm of that intensity can really ruin lives. And don't get me wrong, people. I'm just using some of the things I see on the news as an example, because there are people that were injured, some have died, and houses have been washed away, and lives have been changed and ruined, and all that. I get that, but I think we have to really mind what we pay attention to. And I've talked about this a lot. Is that if we can't just go through our day without paying attention to what's going on, because we're going to miss a lot of the spiritual or metaphysical or synchronicity signs that we get throughout our day that really help us from the other side, right? From the spiritual world, however you view that. But they're there. But the thing is that there's so much other information being bombarded at us from the actual world, or whatever this reality is, that it's hard to pull those things apart sometimes. And sometimes that forces us to quit being so mindful, because it's like, wow, I'm just tired of seeing all these things. I'm tired of hearing all these things. I don't want to know about all these wars. I don't want to worry about being drafted. I don't want to worry about being recalled because I'm a retiree. I don't want to worry about all these things. And so a lot of times we'll turn off that mindfulness, and then we don't get absolutely anything. We don't get any information, the good stuff as well. And so this is where we have to really start using discernment and realize that little things, for example, that they don't call it television programming, or at least that's what they used to call it when I was growing up, for no reason. Because the media is really designed to help us, or help someone or some people or groups create a perception within the population that helps with control, in my opinion. I'm not saying it's absolutely true, like I said, guys. These are just kind of some ideas and some thoughts. I would never accuse anybody or any buddies out there of doing that on purpose. I hope that's not happening. In a lot of ways, it looks that way, feels that way. And maybe it's just coincidental. Who knows? But, the thing is that we are living in a really, really interesting time. A very vibrant time. I don't know if exciting is the right thing, but maybe it is. That we're watching things change at such a rapid pace. It's absolutely astounding. I mean, all these things that are happening around us, UFOs that seem to be in the sky, and just all these crazy phenomenon that are happening, weather, wars, nuclear bombs, or nuclear armaments. I don't know if they're really nuclear the way we understand it. However, it goes back to what my father used to say to me long ago about watching science fiction movies about going to the moon. And even as a kid, I remember watching all these way out movies and shows about robots and, spaceships and, Star Trek and Star Wars and all these things. And I would not doubt that many of those things are actually happening now and have been happening. I mean, let's talk about the robots, right? Tesla, the company owned by Elon Musk, has rolled out these robots that are, oh my goodness, when I was watching the clips of these things, once again, I don't know if the clips are real, right? We don't really know. But if it's reality that I'm seeing, these robots are quite amazingly human. And they move like humans, they talk like humans, they act like humans. Obviously, they're not humans. It is just amazing to watch what we are doing to the human race, or the potential of doing things to the human race. we watch these movies like iRobot and all these things, the idea of technology taking over humans and basically making them slaves to protect them from killing each other off. And, we don't know any better. Well, in some ways we don't, right? But the thing is, yet, even with that idea, and those ideas and all these movies, it is just blows my mind that we will actually put that into practice. We have to really be careful with what we put into the minds of others. If we are the people actually creating this content, and we are the people that are trying to put out things to the public, remember that a lot of people will just jump on the bandwagon and they will just believe it and they will roll with it, and you have to be really careful with that. I say that because if you've heard my podcasts or videos or any of that at any length of time or listened to any of them, I try to stress that I'm not giving truths or claiming that what I am saying is absolutely true or true at all. I'm doing these things based on experience of my own, working with clients, talking to people, things like that. And it's more to get everybody to think a little different, to pay attention, or to think about things in a different way, and just to make sure that people don't get locked into the doldrums of life and just accept things as they are. Because we've talked about this before, we can all change things. We can at least change things in our world. And there's been a lot of studies out there that have shown, like Gandhi has put together huge groups of people, and just simply sitting in meditation and visualizing peace in Chicago. I think there was something he did, and to lower the crime, that it actually happened. We can talk about how that works, but we're not really here to talk about that now. But the point is that we can't necessarily change our external world and all those things that are happening that I was just kind of laying out there, getting the dog wagged by the tail. But we can create our own dog and tail. We can figure out how we can better our own lives and pull our own reality into what we would like it to be, program ourselves, look at how we want our lives to be, what we would like our lives to become, how we would like our families to be taken care of, how we can affect everyone else around us positively. Because let's just face it, we cannot change anything around us if we're not willing to change, or we're not doing the change as well. Because most of us, let's face it, don't let other people off the hook about being late or not working hard enough or being lazy, but we let ourselves off the hook. We don't police our own selves. And the only way to change anything is to start with yourself. I knew we would get to the metaphysical here, didn't you, right? We have to become a better version of ourselves. We have to create our own movie, our own diversion, if you will, that will eventually create our perception, which will eventually create our reality, and then our life. So we have to start the pattern and pull away from the old paradigms, the programming that's being attempted out there on all of us humans, and we need to actually take control back of ourselves. We cannot, in any way, shape, or form, in my opinion, change the entire world. And we can't expect everybody in the world to change, without starting ourselves. So we have to focus on ourselves, which is the one thing we can still control. We can control ourselves. We can control how we think. We can control how we act. We can control our world and create what we want it to be. But the thing is, we have to start doing that and put away some of the social media, put away a lot of those things stop watching a lot of things over and over and over again, which will become part of our subconscious, and then boom, we've bought into the programming that's being put out there. Whether that programming is being done on purpose, I don't know. I don't really care. What I care about is each individual. Boy, that was difficult. Each individual out there, that we are trying to put the effort into ourselves to make us a much better person. And let's stop thinking that becoming wealthy in any way, shape, or form, spiritually, mentally, financially, any of that is being selfish, because it's not. Just like in the body, we have trillions of cells. All of them cells have to put forth their best effort. They have to put all their energy into being the best cell they can be. Otherwise, we don't have a complete body. Imagine if some cells in there decide to not do that, and we're going to have a very unhealthy and unbalanced body. It's the same thing with the body of humanity. I mean, we could talk all day about how that works, but we're not going to do that in this one. But the thing is, for us to be extremely successful benefits the whole. I'm not saying that we need to become wealthy in all ways, shapes, or forms and just give it all away to people. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is becoming the best version of you helps the whole version become better. So I think we should strive to do that. I'm not telling you what to do. I don't tell people what to do. I'm just making suggestions. And there's a lot of ways to do all that. But what I would suggest is that, watching the media, looking at some of these things, great. But don't dwell on it too long. Don't dwell on it so long that you become part of the program or the problem. We should be the solution, not the problem. So we should pull that back on that a little bit, and we should actually focus on us, who we want to be, where we want to go, what we want to do, what we want to become, all of that stuff, and actually start working towards that and try to keep the blinders on a little bit from the world. But we do need to pick up some of that, because a lot of signs and symbols and information from the other side, right, outside of our reality, whatever you believe that is going to show up in a lot of different ways. And if we're not paying attention at all to our surroundings, we're going to miss a lot of things. So we do have to do that, but doing it with discernment. All right, I'm going to get off my soapbox. Like I do every other podcast, is that I want to invite you to my contact page on my website, lifebymazak.com, LIFEBYMAZAK.com. I want you to find a way that makes sense for you to contact me. Hey, let's reach out to me. I'd like to hear what you guys have to say about these kind of things, because I learn, you learn, we all learn, and we all become a much better version, much better people when we take the experiences of others, combine them with our own, and we become this a whole lot better, a whole lot more person. And we can do better things for this world, and it all starts with us. It all starts with us. So reach out to me. You will hear from me again many times. I look forward to hearing from you. Stay strong and live your life.